All right, guys, as promised, we are going to work through the evens together. Number two, a rectangular bedroom is 7 times longer than it is wide. Its area is 1,183 square feet. What is the width of the room? So let's go ahead and set up a rectangular bedroom. And if we know it's 7 times longer than it is wide, if I let's see, based off of the previous problem, if we let x equal the width, then the length is 7 times. Times means multiply. So 7 times x would be the length. Now we know its area is equal to 1183 square feet. I know area is equivalent to the length times width. So that tells me 1183 is going to equal 7x, because that's what I have for the length, times the width, which is x. And then I have 1183 is equal to 7x squared. Divide by 7, and that will give me x squared is equal to 1183 divided by 7 gives me 169. And I now know 169 is equal to x squared. What undoes a square? Square root. So x is going to equal either, take off that into shape, x is going to equal either 13 or negative 13. Obviously, negative 13 doesn't make sense here. So the width is going to be 13 feet. And the length is going to be 7 times 13, 70 plus 21, which will give me 91. So this would be 91 by 13, or you could say 13 by 91 feet. On to number 3 was done for you. Number 4, working alone, it takes Jen 8 hours longer than Cindy to paint a house. Working together, they can paint the same house in 3 hours. How long would it take each of them to paint the same house alone? So since Jen's time is in reference to Cindy's, I'm going to let x equal the time it takes Cindy to paint the house alone. And then Jen would be x plus 8, because it takes Jen 8 hours longer. So it would be the time it takes Jen to paint the house alone. Okay, now I would use this formula that's referenced in number 3. It's 1 over how long it takes person A to do the job alone. So this is going to be 1 over x if I'm using Cindy's time. And then this is 1 over time it takes person B to do the job alone. So I know I'm going to multiply it by a time plus 1 over x plus 8 multiplied by a time is going to equal the 1 job. How long are they working together? 3 hours. So I'm going to multiply this by 3, because that's the time that Cindy's working on the job, and 3 is the time that Jen's working on the job. So this is very similar to the one in the notes. I would call that 3 over 1, and that'll simplify to 3 over x plus 3 over x plus 8 is equal to 1. We will multiply both sides of the equation by the least common denominator, which is x times x plus 8, x times x plus 8, x times x plus 8. And I know I'm gonna have to distribute it in. You guys know me, I like to just show distributing right here. I'm gonna put this over 1 because I'm multiplying those pieces by a fraction. Reduce before you multiply. So x goes into x, and I have 3 times x plus 8 plus x plus 8 divided by x plus 8 is 1. 3 times x is equal to x times x plus 8. Start simplifying. So this will give me 3x plus 24 plus 3x equals x squared plus 8x. This is a quadratic, so I'm going to set it equal to 0. 6x plus 24 equals x squared plus 8x. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 6x and subtract 24. to give me 0 is equal to x squared plus 2x minus 24. You could use the quadratic formula, but me gusta factoring, and this one's pretty easy to factor. The last term is negative, so I know I'm going to have different signs. X times x gives me x squared. 6 times 4 is what would work here. And so we get that x could equal -6, or x could equal 4, if I'm looking at what would make that parentheses equal 0. What makes sense in the context of the problem? Well, x represents the time it takes Cindy to paint the house. So -6 would not make sense, which means it would take Cindy 4 hours, and it would take Jen 4 plus 8, which would be 12. All right, one more to go, guys. Greg went to a conference in a city 120 miles away. On the way back, due to road construction, he had to drive 10 miles per hour slower, which resulted in the return trip, that's a typo, taking 2 hours longer. How fast did he drive on the way to the conference? Ooh, distance, rate, time. Me gusta the chart. Distance equals rate times time. Usually comparing two things. What's going on? He's going to a conference and back. So to and back. You guys know me. I like to start at the end of the problem. How fast did he drive on the way there? So I'm going to let x represent how the rate on the way there. So, and we have to fill in the entire column. So on the way back, it said he had to go 10 miles per hour slower. Sadness. So that would be x minus 10. Now they have to give me either the distance for both pieces or the time for both pieces. So it said he went to a conference 120 miles away. So if he's going there and back, they actually did give me the distance because there and back has to be the same. So 120 miles, 120 miles. Now we know you can look at the notes again, but time can be found by taking distance divided by rate. So I'm going to use this as 120 divided by x, and this is going to be 120 divided by x minus 10. Finally, we have to set up an equation using the last column filled in. So what does it say about the time? It says it resulted in the return trip taking 2 hours longer. I like to see which part took longer. So going back took longer. So I start with the time going back. And if it's longer, I say, what do I have to add to the time going there? So that would be the time going there plus how much longer? 2 hours. So plus 2. So again, the time going back took longer. Wait a minute, time going back took longer. And ooh, you guys probably noticed this mistake, but if you're going 10 miles per hour slower, then, no, that's right. Because if this was like 30, that would be 20. And I just want to make sure I'm thinking through this right. Way back, you had to drive 10 miles per hour slower. Result in 2 hours longer. So the time back took longer. Yeah, okay, so now we'll plug these pieces in. And we have the time going back, which is this. 120 over x minus 10 is going to equal the time going there, 120 over x plus 2. And I'm just going to go ahead and call that 2 a 2 over 1, because I know I'm going to have to multiply by the least common denominator. What would that be in this case? X times x minus 10. X times x minus 10. I'm going to distribute, so x times x minus 10. And reduce before you multiply. So x minus 10 goes into itself once, and that gives me 120x is equal to, if I look at reducing, let's see, I distributed so I can take away those parentheses. X goes into itself one time, so I'm left with 120 times x minus 10 plus nothing reduces here. So I have 2x times x minus 10. Okay, lots of distributing. So that's 120x is equal to 120x minus 1200 plus distribute 2x squared minus 20x. I'm going to set this equal to 0. Let me go ahead and combine like terms first. 120x plus negative 2x or plus negative 20x. And I'm going to put the 2x squared first. Combine those to give me 100x minus 1200 equals 120x. Subtract 120x from both sides, which will give me 2x squared minus 20x minus 1200. Now you can solve this using the quadratic formula. I noticed that everything's divisible by 2, so I'm going to go ahead and divide it out, because 0 divided by 2 is 0, and that gives me x squared minus 10x minus 600. You don't have to do that. I just noticed that that it works, so I just like putting that in. Now I can plug in smaller numbers. I can't think of what, let's see, 12 times 5 would give me 60, but I can't think of what factors here. So I'll go ahead and plug this in. X equals the opposite of b, plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. Okay, plug this guy in. Let's make this a little bit easier. There we go. All right, so clear that alpha. What's going on there? Alpha y equals n over d, and that's 10 plus or minus. So 10 plus square root 100 minus 4 times negative 600 all over 2, which will give me 30. So it looks like 30, and I bet you the other one's negative 20. Let's see. If I copy this up and make this a minus, and there, that's negative 20. Which one doesn't make sense here? Well, x represents the rate on the way there, so obviously no good. So 30. So that would be 30 miles per hour. That's it.